You are listening to Filthy Armenian Adventures. In tonight's episode, we crash the phone booth for a 2.5-hour gull session about the birds, a film by Alfred Hitchcock, and a book about the film by Camille Paglia. Features your host, Alec Mohibian, and guest stars a fine feathered friend of the show, Jack Mason of the Perfume Nationalist. I'll be back with a little more on tonight's adventure after this word from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, it's your host Alec Mohibian with a quick note before we begin. Filthy Armenian Adventures is an interdimensional travel program that takes you deep into the cultural mysteries of our strange and interesting times. In search of truth, in search of gold, in search of lost friends and unsung heroes, in search of John Galt's motor. The show is supported entirely by patrons at patreon.com/filthyarmenian. Patrons get access to twice as many adventures, including the most intimate and scandalous ones, plus regular 5 to 15 minute smoke break mini episodes on movies, shows, and topics of the urgent moment. Patrons also get first dibs on our next live event. The first two were a smash. It's very easy to keep Filthy Armenian Adventures alive. You can still listen to the premium feed on Apple or Spotify or your favorite app, and you can do so with the pride that you're putting a little bit of money where your soul is. More patrons means more landmarks, more hotspots, more secret locations, and forbidden territories around the world, and the world that is Los Angeles, our apocalyptic headquarters. It means we'll be able to track down more enchanting figures in the landscape and dare them to abandon their masks. Patreon.com/filthyarmenian. Gracias for listening, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back. Perhaps you are wondering why I am wearing this wig of luscious orange hair. You see, I have a little red rooster, too lazy to crow for days, and it's left something of a power vacuum in my barnyard. Everything is all a twitter. A sinister bird brain has snuck in here, trying to exploit the chaos, and I must find a way to shut up her deafening campaign. Unfortunately, I shall be doing so on an empty stomach, as my chickens haven't laid an egg all week. To deal with that problem, it appears I'm going to need the help of a trained professional. So I've hired a poultry therapist from one of the most highly recommended outfits in Hollywood. It is called Zanku Chicken. And like a kiss being blown, and like a bird, we are back on the air for a bull session with my dear friend Jack Mason of the Perfume Nationalist. Exactly 5 years from the beginning of his reality-altering, radio-intellectual nighttime soap opera going on the air, and 2 years after we celebrated with his first appearance on this show,
We celebrated him becoming a full-time broadcaster. He returns now to continue a firework we set off about a month ago on his show when covering sexual personae and Camille Paglia. To continue that and possibly set off another firework regarding someone who has been probably the most fundamental to my passion for movies as an art form, instead of just something to, be excited about as a kid, but as something to study and obsess over. The most fundamental figure for me, and I think the figure most synonymous with cinema as an art form itself. If there was to be one name without which the whole edifice crumbles apart and the entire history of the movies is swept away in the tides of fashionable taste and opinion and technology, that indispensable name is Alfred Hitchcock. And it's a name that has been kind of pecked at by the little crows of feminist critique for decades and decades, finally somewhat basically canceled in the 2010s, but whom Camille Paglia, in one of her brief but spectacular works, resurrects and preserves for all time. And that work is the book she wrote called The Birds for BFI Film Classics series, which are, short 100-page monographs exclusive by different writers exclusively about one movie. Friend of the show, David Thompson, did one about The Big Sleep. Camille Paglia did one about The Birds, where she does a frame-by-frame analysis, celebration, and gossip sesh, private bull session with the reader over what might be Alfred Hitchcock's finest movie. There are so many to compete with, but from a pure perfection standpoint, it's almost impossible to beat. And I'm really excited to talk about the movie, to talk about Paglia's view of the movie, and to also address all the ways in which Alfred Hitchcock, this particular movie and this book about the movie, speak to our very own moment right now. There are a lot of eerie overlaps, as eerie as the strange silences that end many of the scenes prior to the bird attack. Jack, how's it going?
Great. Nobody cares about Hitchcock anymore, right? Nobody even,
No.
The days of these movies being on those lists is over, right?
Well, last I saw, Vertigo wasn't even in the top 10 in the new...
so it's just not even...
It was so... This is how far things have fallen and how fast. I think it's the Sight and Sound poll, right? That the big one, the top 100, where it was Citizen Kane forever, and then in around 2001, and correct me fact check me, or 2001 or 2006 or sometime there was the big drop where for the first time ever it was no longer Citizen Kane, it was Vertigo. Vertigo had leapfrogged Citizen Kane.
Well, nobody
and
cares
at the
about
time,
Citizen Kane anymore or knows what that is.
Nobody cares about Citizen Kane. When we were growing up, it was cliche to the point of it was you were almost motivated to deny Citizen Kane because it was so cliche that it was the greatest movie ever made.
Well, and then you watched it and saw how peppy and actually fun it was, or at least I did.
It's so fun.
It
It's
just sounded when
comedy.
it was at the top of all those lists when you're a kid, it would be I don't know, Das Boot or something, something
right,
really boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really peppy and exciting and fun and fast paced. But yeah, no one, people don't have the intellectual capacity to watch a Hitchcock movie now. They used to show Hitchcock movies to you in film class to show you what storyboards are and dissect the scene and show you how to make movies, how movies are made and stuff. But I would assume that this world is just completely gone. Because weren't on the last Bret Easton Ellis where he had Quentin Tarantino, weren't they doing like some sort of Gen X galaxy brain thing about Hitchcock that only would have mattered in 1985?
Exactly. Quentin Tarantino said how he hates Vertigo.
Yeah. So people, those really old Gen Xers, they're still stuck in some moment in like 1985 where they're like rebelling against this like college classroom that teaches like Ingmar Bergman and Hitchcock. They're all like that. They still think they're living in that world. I'm like, no, you're not living in that world. You're living in the world where like Get Out is at the top of these lists. You're at the top. You're fighting against nothing. And Hitchcock was. I think Hitchcock was one of the first movie people that I heard described as a misogynist, long before wokeness or anything. My like mentor / best friend, who was an older Gen Xer, implanted that idea that Hitchcock was a misogynist. And it's like, of course, true in the sense that like if you tell elemental truths about gender, then that's considered misogynist. But what do you want? Like a Hitchcock movie with like a rocket scientist, a dorkable chick who's like fucking a guy on top with a bra on,
and who never once talks about a guy when she's in a scene with another woman.
Because we've seen what that looks like.
All in this one.
Yeah, we've seen what that looks like because that's been implemented for years in all movies. All the rules of feminism and going against tropes and going against stereotypes. So now we have that world, and I'm just wondering, do people like it? Just to see endless female characters of that nature, and in such as in True Detective Women talking. They're just there's this forced kind of humor to it because they have to show that the women are like salty and funny, and not like not like a serious hysterical broad. So they're always like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna clip my fucking toenails." Like, I guess people like that.
The acerbic consolations of the postmenopausal, basically old maid who has cases to solve instead of men to defeat, instead of men to deal with.
So and it's like the world that they wanted.
They got the world that they wanted.
They couldn't just sit back and like look at Hitchcock movies and be like, "That's a cool thing from the past." Which is what you're supposed to do. You're just supposed to look at it and go, "Oh, that's cool. This is cool. It's cool that this is."
Hitchcock was the first. Yeah, Hitchcock was the first person that was the first director that I recognized as a director because he was, revered when I was growing up. Still, this all happened. This all went off a cliff. Like the misogynist charges had been levied at him for decades. Paglia addresses them in this 1999 book, like in the main text. She's talking. But she has a.
It didn't matter because it was just some remote academic feminist thing, like the ordinary person, and like the ordinary kind of like media about movies, like those like Warner Brothers 100 years of movies, like those wouldn't talk about things like feminism.
In my interview with her, Tippi Hedren rejected the widespread theories about Hitchcock's misogynist malice. This is in 1999. So Paglia did talk to Tippi Hedren before she got, before the canaries of the Me Too movement swooped in to claim her in the 2010s, and before I guess she has entered a state in the last 10 years as exemplified. And by the way, I should mention here, we scheduled this episode because I went on to do Sexual Personae, and I wanted to talk about Hitchcock at some point on my show, and I was like, let's do Hitchcock and the Birds and Paglia after, and you suggested this date, which we're recording right now 2 days after Tippi Hedren's 94th birthday.
I found out she was alive.
we all found out she was alive, and during which a woman who has blocked me on Twitter named Joyce Carol Oates posted the following thing, which explains the entire rubble of culture that we kind of we amble through today. And here's what she posted. And this is someone who supposedly, she herself is 700 years old, and she supposedly believes in art and literature. She supposedly practices it. And it's very clear from this post, like, just exactly what kind of attitudes and ideologies were permitted through the gates by the darlings of the establishment for decades and allowed to destroy everything. So good that Tippi Hedren outlived the misogynist bully who threatened to destroy her career by more than 40 years. Hitchcock died in 1980. So this is also a veiled threat.
Her career is those two movies that Hitchcock
Those two
made.
movies and nothing else.
Her career is being a Hitchcock woman. That's her career, is two movies.
A Hitchcock blonde, no less. A Hitchcock blonde.
What was she supposed to do? To like go through the 70s and I don't even know what else she did besides the 90s straight-to-video sequel Birds to Land's End, which I liked when I was a kid.
Oh shit! No, I didn't even know that.
It's really bad, but I had the video cassette. My mom bought it for me from Avon. But I mean,
Hitchcock found her in an ad.
Tippi Hedren's alive for one thing.
We found out she's alive. We found out Joyce Carol. We know Joyce Carol Oates is alive because she posts all day.
Well, Joyce Carol Oates is an amazing phenomenon because she's 80 years old, but posts in the voice of the flawless voice of a really dumb, like 24-year-old of today.
Yeah.
And I just can't even comprehend how you can be that old and live through that many decades and absorb, like, in this like shape-shifting xenomorph way, the posting language of Zoomers, not even like smart Zoomers, but
she looks like a ventriloquist doll, so maybe there's some sort of
her being on Twitter has just
style.
Absolutely ruined her legacy forever, unfortunately. But I guess Tippi Hedren and the Birds shared in that like Shelley Duvall, Stanley Kubrick like Facebook meme format is one of those little tropes and stories that like dumb people who don't watch movies know about, that he vaguely did something wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't care. It was 1963. The problem clearly was that he was fat and unattractive.
That's his crime.
That made it creepy. He didn't like rape her. For the record, she was like the one who didn't sleep with him. So she should have just shut up and slept with them. So instead of complaining, that's a reasonable deal to sleep with a fat, repulsive genius one time and get two movies out of them and be a legend forever. That's what is it to you to open your legs one time in fucking like Mad Men era?
And you know he's
your
not
daughter is Melanie
last
Griffith,
that long.
Like the whore of all time. Like, you can't do it one time. Right. Okay, great, good. I'm so proud of you, but
you made it to 94 without opening it up to Hitchcock one time.
But yeah, I guess
she
it
looks
was Janet Leigh that's dead.
She's actually one of. So Paglia makes a big point about how she's the first person in forever to actually celebrate Tippi Hedren's performance in this movie, which is truly a marvel.
She's
and
amazing.
I think people just get the blondes just get blended in their head. I think people experience Hitchcock blonde blend when they're just going through his over. I'm talking about the alternative history when people did that, when people went through the Hitchcock over. And I think that it may get lost in straight people love Grace Kelly, for example. So they're going to be, you're always going to hear the straight guy say that Grace Kelly's number one. and there's of course Janet Leigh and Kim Novak and so on, but she's perfect in this movie.
She's incredible.
Paglia does a great job of celebrating it. Her facial expressions throughout, which Hitchcock described as never once being excessive. I mean, everything she does, every little dart of her eyes, every little like turn of her head, you can see her thinking, and every thought has a point that you don't even hear, just like the silent thoughts that she's having in the course of this. There are long shots of her smoking a cigarette, dangling a telephone cord, holding a pencil, all these like this wonderful Freudian imagery that she maneuvers expertly, and the walking around and like the creeping around and the trotting and like the sprinting around purposefully when she's in her playgirl mode. It's all so precise and like so graceful. That was something I really appreciated.
She's the ultimate Hitchcock
time.
Woman, because she's the most totally icy and abstracted one in the most totally icy and abstracted Hitchcock movie, where it's just basically congealed into this perfect block of ice, the world he always wanted, where like no one shits, no one eats.
No one eats.
Everything is
no one eats.
Beautiful and perfect. Her hair looks like cotton candy. Never gets messed up. Everything is perfectly controlled and aestheticized. She's, like the other Hitchcock women, all have more humanity that seeps through, and she's the perfect, most icy one. And then she's perfect in Marnie too, which is basically the sequel to this, about her being frigid. I mean, and it's fucking great. I think about it all the time. But
I have to rewatch that. It's been a long time, and I've only seen it once.
It's incredible. I think about it every day, where she has these red flashes whenever something reminds her of her like repressed trauma of her like whore mother fucking sailors in the room when she was a kid. So I always get like these red Marnie flashes when something makes me really angry.
I remember that movie. Yeah, that movie was really panned, wasn't it? Like, that was like, that's what everyone singles out as the downfall of Hitchcock.
It was considered misogynist even in like 1964.
Yeah,
because she's just like frigid, and Sean Connery maritally rapes her, and that makes it okay. Like Spot the Lie, but
right.
Even in 1964, that was considered a little barbaric. But yeah, it's great. It's perfect.
On the pantyhose. I have to rewatch that. But
it was written by a woman, J. Preston Allen.
She wrote the script or the novel?
The script. Both? She wrote that script, and she wrote Cabaret. She was a cool old one of the big women screenwriters. But
takes one to know. I mean,
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, beyond the fact that no one watches Hitchcock anymore, I think people just are overthinking things. Like, some things aren't that hard. You look at Hitchcock movies and you say, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that cool? Isn't this a wonderful evocation of a previous time? You don't have to be thinking about gender roles. It's all there if you want it. But you don't have to be thinking about that. Just fucking look at the cool coffee shop they go into. You don't need to be thinking about this garbage.
God. That diner, that restaurant is my favorite in all of history of all time.
Well, the one they go in like North by Northwest,
the Tides,
like a lodge. Tides. You know the one I'm thinking of with that like vaulted roof?
Right. That one's great. I mean, every Hitchcock restaurant scene is spectacular because he was himself such a fussy gourmand, and like you could just tell that he had an eye for every little element of the dining experience. I mean, the one in the famous restaurant in Vertigo in San Francisco that they go to, which is real. I forget the name of it. Not Chasen's, but some. I don't know, maybe those huge portions that they're serving, these like dainty chicks and women in the society, socialites in there. I'll never forget that when they bring out like a giant, like a huge fish for like one little dainty socialite.
Yeah,
at one of the tables.
No, it's incredible. I just, there's this general problem that I sense everywhere where people keep like scrutinizing like music, lyrics too much for like the content of the performer, and like scrutinizing just like little like storyline mechanics. It's like, no, you don't like, people watched these movies back in the day. They would just come on TV and you said, oh, that's cool. And then later, if you were into movies, you found out how perfectly constructed and immaculate and kind of psychotic they were. But you don't actually need that. You don't need to be thinking about gender. You don't need to know who Tippi Hedren is. I know that none of you know who that is. You don't need to know who that is.
Nobody knows who anybody is. If you don't know who Hitchcock is, you don't know who Tippi Hedren is.
Like, you're not going to come at me with
anybody.
Ice Spice or whatever and then say you know who Tippi Hedren is and have an opinion about that. I've
told the story to you privately. I don't know if I've said it on this show, but I probably have, because it'll never leave me ever. When I, out of the politeness of my, out of the gallantry and the chivalry of my homosexual bachelor heart, once told a female film director of an absolutely horrible movie, totally talentless woman, told her that she reminded me physically of Kim Novak. And I think I actually said Tippi Hedren, but it was corrected to Kim Novak because it was I had their names were mixed up even in my head. I meant Kim Novak from Vertigo. She looked very much like her in a certain kind of way. Also was from San Francisco. And she snapped at me because she thought that I was making a move on her, which, can you imagine the horror of making a move on her?
Oh my God.
We were at a film festival.
Not making a move on some shitty affirmative action woman director.
She was like, that was very
Is this the director of True Detective Women talking that you made?
Exactly. No. Literally, this is who is going to direct.
Just like some dumb bitch.
Completely dumb bitch. Made a horrible, horrible, horrible documentary. Boringest movie I've ever had to sit through.
Just women are always like,
I'm making a documentary.
It was a documentary about some broad in Iceland who claims she sees elves, and like everyone in town takes her seriously.
You should watch Hitchcock instead. You should watch The Bird instead of watching some woman director's
You should watch Kim Novak in Vertigo, and you should watch real movies. Anyway, she snapped at me. And then, of course, and her reason was, well, I'm like one female director here, and there's three guys, because we were three of us. There were 3 men or 4 men and her, and she's like, I just think it was like, this was a classic 2020. This is 2020, right before the pandemic. This is like that first crow, that first seagull flying in on Tippi Hedren's head on Bodega Bay as she splits Bodega Bay into 2 with her boat. There's like, whap! That was like that incident. And then from then on, the plague began. And
revisiting this movie
ensued.
It gave me a TPN 5th anniversary flashback to the beginning of the show when I was like really talking bad about women like every episode, and I got it all out of my system. And now I don't really talk that bad about them. People used to get really mad about it. Now I'm just like, whatever, feminist, all my fans are women, whatever.
Because you don't have to deal with them anymore.
I don't have to deal. I don't have any resentment for them because I don't have one as my boss. It's plain, it's simple as. So, but the first like 25 episodes were just me saying how women are like elementally evil. It was very informed by, of course, Paglia, and also by her analysis of this movie. Because what is this movie about but how women's sexual liberation brings about a elemental plague that destroys society. That's what this movie is about.
It's about every
The birds are
angle
women
of,
being
yeah,
free and destroying everything.
are being free and just destroying everything, and also fighting back. Also, it's women devouring other women.
But since it's an
Like
entertainment and a brilliant entertainment, the casual observer can watch this and, you know, it can just be about a mysterious plague
animals.
of birds
Yeah.
that comes in, and that's what it's like when you're a kid and you watch it. But no, it's about, you know, she's a play girl. She's fucking around. She has all of her daddy's money. She's leaping around in fountains in Rome. She has this reputation. It's the beginning of the 60s. Women's liberation is happening. The central family in the birds doesn't have a patriarch. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, Mitch, and then the mother, the daughter, the weird quasi-lesbian Suzanne Plachette, ex-girlfriend.
Who's amazing.
I'm a more of a Suzanne Plachette fan than I am a Tippi Hedren fan, and I love that Paglia in the book is really horny for Suzanne Plachette because she's one of the most amazing.
She can't stop. She's so horny.
Suzanne Plachette was so classy and so beautiful, and people kind of don't know who she is now because she wasn't in like. After this, she was most famous just on the Bob Newhart show as like the wife, and she did like sitcom roles. But she's incredible. She's just so classy.
Her voice.
Yeah.
Her voice. She has an energy that you like, even in the context of great like golden age Hollywood female performances, which, you know, for my money, peaked during the screwball comedy era with the Stanwicks and the whole roster of them. Even with that even among all of that, she has like a vibe that just pops in this movie that you just almost never see anywhere. Paglia describes it perfectly. The way she's at the same time she's learned, she's lusty, she has a heart, like she's sexually frustrated but clearly not done like yet. She clearly has a kind of lust and like this forlorn hope for somehow backing into Mitch again. And despite her defeated, and she also has this like minor depressiveness, but also this classiness, and like there's something about her that's just everything wrapped up into one defeated but don't count her out type of woman, and it's so mesmerizing.
Interesting little undefinable character, and I just that dykey sexiness between them. Like Mulholland Drive, kind of like blonde and brunette, like cigarettes, blonde and brunette
competing with each other.
Them, it's so hot.
But also like it's this brutal competition. Yeah. Female blood sport literally becomes one without a single like shot fired, without like a single gun pointed and shot at the other person. It's all through ice. It's an ice battle all the way. Like no, they don't say one intentionally cross word to each other. It's all reactions to Tippi Hedren's going to stay for the weekend now. Tippi Hedren's going to find Mitch now. So you knew him from the city too, huh? It's all factual, inoffensive information being exchanged, and the icy, the scaldingly icy reactions to it, and also, you know, how they kind of find a truce too at a certain point, which is part of it too. It's brilliantly performed, directed, conceived, framed. I mean, there's like so many frames in this movie could just straight up be paintings, and you would be like,
think
this
about
should be a museum.
If you followed the whatever women talking rule that they can't be talking about a man,
all scenes go away.
You wouldn't have those amazing scenes between them, or you would have them and they're just talking about smoking weed and farting.
Yeah, like it would be like Broad City, where where that's what it would become. Like compare
all the
Bechdel
test scenes that they implement in modern movies have this amazing falseness, where like in all the horror movies where they show like a fatherless family with like a red-haired mother with gender goblin kids, a single mother, they'll have the Bechdel test scenes, and it's always like the woman has an interest in vinyl records, and they still will refer to it like a man negatively. It'll always be like, your father knew less about records than me. You know that, right? Yeah, you
Your
wouldn't have
father, who I stole the idea of liking records from, knew less about records than me, because no woman in the history of mankind, except maybe Camille Paglia, has ever on her own gotten the idea of obsessing over vinyl records. It would be something that she got from her dad, or from her brother, or from her boyfriend, if there is such a woman. And there's probably 3 of them in all of in all of like the global, in all of planet Earth.
And
I mean, we're all sick and fucking tired of this shit, right? Is anyone
we're all,
not sick and tired of this shit?
I don't know. I don't know what people. I don't have an accurate read on.
Do normies know anything?
Actually think about.
I don't think people have thoughts anymore. Is the problem? It's not that they
think about
this
Taylor
or they
Swift.
think that.
I know that. That's the only thing. Like, it's
they'll think about exactly.
There's the constant, either low level or forefronted Taylor Swift derangement going in every which way, related to every topic. Like, she's the only thing that people really think about, and it's like vehement anger about her usually.
I think that's where we're at with normies, which includes, by the way, a whole bunch of all the conservatards and right wing anons. They're all normies, by the way. I think
they're
all
normies.
Like normie peasants now.
We've pulled the Wizard of Oz curtain back, and they've all been revealed to be normies and essentially libtards too.
Basically, I mean, culturally libtards for sure, because they have absolutely no frame of reference beyond the current thing. Discourse cycle,
and they don't want anything. I mean, they don't show any desire for anything else. Like, there are these flashes of like showing off the PDF knowledge, but I don't know where that goes. I don't know if they want more of the PDF knowledge.
The PDF knowledge is so my career now is now entering. My Twitter career is entering. I've started paying attention in 2020, so it's like almost 4 years. I started really paying attention, obviously, when we met, when we started talking, which was late, beginning of 21. Women talking, yeah. When women started talking, like 1950s, chatting on the 1950s style over the phone, there was a sense to me that, I found it all. I was in that innocent honeymoon phase with finding all of everyone, even the dirtbag leftists, all of them, where I was just like, oh, wow, there's someone other than a Bechdel test, like squawking a seagull from like improv class, like as the only thing that exists.
Oh my God,
America.
This whole new world where everyone thinks just like me because you haven't yet been like put in the stocks on the town square.
You haven't been like... Yeah, you haven't been trapped in the telephone booth. Right, you haven't been trapped in the telephone booth as all the birds are unleashed. It's more like it's the diner scene where everyone's having... the diners, by the way, the diner scene. Let's put a pin on that, because the diner scene is, to me, the one of the most prescient, if not straight up prescient, things in this entire fucking movie. And there's many. But that scene, which is basically the discourse cycle, basically the group chat of our times, there is this obvious plague, obvious, horrific, very real thing descending upon this town. And all they can do is, there's the one PDF old lady who I love, by the way, the 84-year-old.
Yes, amazing.
The 84-year-old, I forget, she's someone that Hitchcock brought in from England. Amazing, perfect character. I was like, oh, literally me. The amateur ornithologist, whatever you call it, expert on birds. She starts giving all her PDF bird knowledge. How, no, this can't be a coordinated attack. Birds never flock together. All this, she's like correcting everyone. There's a drunk Irishman going, "It's the end of the world. It's the end of the world." This biblical, he has like a biblical end times reaction to everything. There's the mother who's going, "You're scaring the children. You're scaring the children. You're scaring. Stop talking.
You're scaring the children." Always an
yeah.
annoying archetype is the mother who doesn't want the children scared.
Which it's really her that's scared. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The children couldn't give a shit. The children are off on the side, but she's the one who's freaking out. And she's like saying, "You're doing." This is another trope that it's a trope, but it's also reality, because every time women have a fear of something for themselves, they turn it into this. But the children, save the children, protect the children. We see this in liberal politics and conservative politics.
Yeah,
24/7.
it's always bargaining with, not bargaining, but bludgeoning with children. And it's none of these people ever like actually appreciate children as human beings. It's always just kind of abstract political arguments about protecting whatever you think their purity is. Whether their purity is their right to go trans under your direction at 10 years old, or it's, your trad fantasies of keeping them from going trans at 10. I don't know. Whatever, your conservatard argument where they have to be like Catholic and homeschooled, and they're going to turn out to be really annoying on the internet.
Right. Yeah. The at one point the lady goes, at one point somebody screams, what is it? I'm trying to find it here. Well, at one point somebody's like, "We're under attack and you are all just sitting here debating." And there was that woman who says that, and it was great. That was like I think that's the mother who freaks out toward the end with that same comment, where she does kind of like, yeah, that's all people are going to do is just debate. There's nothing else to do. There's no way to fully process a real attack, and if anybody prophesizes it, they're just going to be dismissed as crazy or as a chaos monger, which is kind of like, that's basically what, like, Tippi Hedren is the one, Melanie, the character, is the one who comes with, she's blamed for bringing this, which she does. She's blamed for causing this mayhem.
Yeah,
because it starts with her uninvited migration to Bodega Bay, and then later when the huge like the gas, the fire thing, and the huge town attack happens, that same big mouth mother, Libs of TikTok mother, Chea, what's her name in the diner, the character prophetically named Chea Rejek or whatever, she goes, she blames her straight up. She's like, "You're evil. I think you're evil." And then Tippi smacks her across the face. Amazing. Which is really the only way to end certain ridiculous arguments.
I can't remember if Pags says it in the book, but the title, "The Birds," means the women too. I mean, this is like 60s British people slang for women. The birds. It
is the women. Birds means women. Yeah.
Yeah.
The birds is a British slang term for women. I mean, it's obvious from Paglia you think that, this is just this is not just like a Paglia analysis thing. It's
not.
It's the most obvious thing.
It's not people being like, Star Wars episode. It's not your little whatever YouTube clip idea of something Paglia made up. It's
100%
about.
Yeah, the entire movie is about women and how they kind of women versus women, and also the battle for a woman's control over men. And it's like overtly the case. There are other scholarly books. There's like the one that she quotes from often is also called A Mother's Love, by somebody named Wood, who wrote a book about the birds. It's every single presence of the bird, of the birds, the chirps, the sounds, everything is directly cause and effect connected with a bit of, dramatic competition moment between the women, especially between Mitch's mother and Tippi Hedren as she arrives, and also between Tippi Hedren and Plachette, and also in every which way, and also so many just general ones. Like somebody says, every time somebody says that the birds, they just mind their own business, some woman from somewhere is going to go, 4 fried chickens right now, like from in the diner. Every time somebody claims that the birds are just peaceful creatures minding their own business, there's some squawking woman.
All they want is equality. All they want is equality.
Yeah, all they want is equality. Give me those Bloody Marys right now.
Look, I sympathize for their wanting freedom. I'm a homosexual. Whatever, I understand.
I
wanting
do
your
too.
Legal
freedom for all.
Whatever, I understand all of this. Feminists here. But look what happened when they got their freedom. We have what we have now. So,
we have
politics, and the United States, the greatest country that ever lived, was, ruined by decades of women having the vote and women's perverse maternal instincts going towards homeless and immigrants and abstract substitutes for children they would have had if they didn't have birth control. So look where we are, and men
it's all
have the choice of either going trans or trying to get a job at Whataburger by checking the Latinx box on the application. And the country is ruined. So they have their freedom. They don't know. They solved everything. They got all the freedom they wanted. They have total status over men in every way, and all the money they want, and can't be judged for anything they do. But
now they're going, why did you let us get all that power?
Yeah, now it's men's fault for not keeping them.
Why'd you let us get all that power?
Why'd you give us it's always men's fault for not making more money than them, no matter how much money they make. It's always like, can't any man up and just make more money than me?
How do you like the part about Tippi Hedren sending a little Korean boy to school? There's that point.
She was always doing weird stuff. She's there was that big New Yorker article about how she's responsible for Korean nail salons. I don't remember the chain of events.
I meant the character. I meant Melanie. So when Melanie has that confrontation with Mitch, when she says she has to go back to San Francisco so that she can go to work, and he's like, "You work? What do you work?" And she's like, "Yes, I work. On Mondays, I go into the Traveler's Aid. On Thursdays, I have an afternoon luncheon. We're sending a little Korean boy to school,
Oh, right. Melanie's. Yeah.
Melanie, yeah. She's sending a little Korean boy to school. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
The fucking,
social
charity bullshit that rich people do.
Fake
the NGO complex.
Yeah. Those were all fake things invented to occupy women and keep them out of the real stuff. That's what charity is.
And now it's 70% of every corporation.
You would learn this if you watch
D.W.
Griffith's
Korean
Intolerance, which shows exactly what happens when meddling women reformers get their way. It causes a catastrophic chain of events of intolerance. We didn't share the amazing news, Paglia-related news, that Pedro Gonzalez himself has purchased Glittering Images by Camille Paglia for his
This is like the moment when
image overhaul.
This is like when I saw that, I had two reactions. One was the face of that native chick in The Curse, sitting at the table, always looking looking at
Kara.
Kara. One was the Kara look, which I posted a pic of. I found, thank God, one screenshot of that. And then the second thing that reminds me of seeing Pedro Gonzalez acquire Glittering Images by Camille Paglia, the empress of the art right, whom he himself had named as villain and enemy number one to his brand of socialist conservatism that he wanted to save the Republican Party with. The other reaction I have is a one similar one to what Melanie Tippi Hedren has when she first sees the first bird who had made it down the chimney and invaded the home, so that she was not alone in having invaded that home. And that first, because she's always seeing the bird. You know that feeling, Jack, where you're hearing the menace first before anyone else does, almost psychically, as Paglia points out. Melanie in this movie is always hearing the birds first, even when she's inside, like the diner. She hears the bird way outside of a very soundproof diner. She's always hearing it before anyone else. She hears the thing, and then she looks, and then it comes. Like it's every time she's getting it first. You know that feeling where you see where you hear a menace chirping before anyone else does, and then they don't believe you until there's blood everywhere.
But it doesn't matter because you're the crazy gay guy who lives for drama. So it doesn't matter.
And has
it
hair
doesn't
like
matter until 3 years later when like BAP gets credit for whatever it is. So. Wow, BAP, you were really right. So yeah, I'm well used to that feeling. I just like, what is Pedro going to get out of Glittering Images? Like learning what Camille Paglia thinks about artwork such as Chillin' with Liberty, that like black woman like sitting on the Statue of Liberty, like thinking about the content of that book.
He's not going to read it. So
he's not going to read it. None of them read.
It's like when he posts a picture. No, he's not going to read past like the introduction. He might find something in there about her, like that he can use as bait that to call her a pedo, and then he'll post that. He's not going to read past anything. He's not going to be able to make heads or tails of it. If he does, his brain cannot handle Camille Paglia.
But the 2 weeks of this mimetic Paglia freak out. Okay, we did the sexual persona episode, which was a massive success because that's a topic that people are interested in, and because you guys were so good. But yeah, we did that on exactly a month ago, and I guess the chain of events was some kind of like normie-tard conservatard account that Ryan James Gurdusky, some like both sides conservative.
They always have 3 names.
They're always They're always
the sus ones.
Just so faceless. But he was someone I unfollowed for being just like vanilla ass conservatard bitch. And he's gay, right? He posted
people say
what?
People say he's gay.
Oh, is he gay? Are they
gay.
all? I don't know.
Yeah, so he's the worst. He's a gay. I don't know. He's not the worst, but I'm saying like a normie gay conservatard on a la Dave Rubin, I guess is what he is.
That's one of the worst things you can possibly have.
Catholic too.
Your takes on anything from a gay guy outside of this room are probably going to be worse than almost anything you can imagine, especially if they have any kind of like art world status or like art. You're just gonna have that Susan Sontag bullshit, that fake credentialed faggoty tiny glasses bullshit that doesn't mean anything to anyone, and they all sneer at Paglia because she's the populist hero. But that guy posted that tweet. I didn't even watch the video. I don't know what topic. I'm sure it's something boring and basic, like Paglia owns woke culture, that kind of thing. I didn't fucking watch the video, but it said Paglia was almost right about everything. He put that almost there to.
He said Paglia almost never misses
child pornography portion of the Wikipedia page, like they do.
Yeah.
And so like all the fucking like right wing and on like just all these awful people were just giving their awful quote tweet takes on that. Every kind of terrible person, all of them willfully, I can't even go over it, but just willfully misunderstanding her just colorless analysis. But also, of course, the key here and the biggest problem the most annoying thing in all this for me is that when these people say Paglia, that's a stand-in for Anna, to a lesser degree me, to the thing called Dime Square. I'm putting that in quotes because Dime Square just means those 4 pictures of the first De Vere ball that they all freaked out about. That's what Dime Square means to them. So, but really it's just about Red Scare and the culture surrounding Red Scare. But they're pretending that there's some kind of old-timey academic that's like engaging with the ideas of Camille Paglia herself. And it's like, no, what they're doing is talking about Red Scare, which they resent because Red Scare shows that you can change culture positively by saying the truth under your own face and name, and you can make friends in real life and hang out with them. That's what they hate. But they won't ever say that.
You can actually talk about shit that's not just conservatard bullshit too. There's that whole resentment. They hate the fact that you could talk about any. You know how they always derisively refer to art now. That's part of their like.
They derisively refer to art, and you know, another thing that they mean when they say Paglia is podcast, because all of those people have their usual kind of anti-podcast diatribe because it's supposed to be cooler that you're just anonymously having circular arguments about current thing and not doing anything, and they resent other people's success. And Paglia is back in the discourse in this way in the last 5 years solely because of Red Scare and because of me. Okay, there's no other reason. There's no other
somebody
reason.
Tried to give all the credit.
90s intellectual Camille Paglia. It wasn't BAP. Bronze Age pervert, Bronze Age mindset referenced her, but that was 2018. So it's in this hedging way where he criticizes her a little because at that point, if you were on alt-right Twitter, people would get on your ass for quoting positively a degenerate lesbian feminist. That's how cloistered it was. That changed because of Red Scare and because of me. So the current atmosphere that you see is because of Red Scare and because of me. So when they're talking about Paglia.
And that's all for the free portion of this episode. For the full 2.5-hour Gull session, subscribe now at patreon.com/Filthy Armenian and support this show. Join the enlightened society of rug merchants and cigar singers and oligarchs of the night who keep the lights on and make this travel agency for the soul possible. You'll get access to basically twice the number of full episodes, plus exclusively for patrons. I've been doing these smoke breaks almost every day, 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 minute mini episodes on, TV shows, movies, incidents of the day. It's been a big hit with the subscribers so far. So it's really worth it to subscribe, in addition to the pride you'll get from being the type of person who puts your money where your soul is. Patreon.com/Filthy Armenian. Thank you for listening, and see you on the other side.